So it's funny. When I decided to do this, I didn't gauge how hard it would be to talk about my own work. I'm on my third reel of trying to talk about my time in Tulsa, and it's going a little slowly. Whenever my wife compliments me, my immediate retort is I'm uncomfortable. And the fact that I decided to create a project where I look back on the things I'm most proud of this year, I'm literally patting myself on the back and making myself uncomfortable at the same time. So here we are. So when I started this year, I had two main goals in mind. One, I wanted to have a column on somebody's publication, which is really vague, but that's pretty much as far as I got with that goal. And the other one was I wanted to be paid for my photography. I hadn't been shooting long, but I felt like my work was getting better, and I wanted to position myself into a place where this new art form that I was getting into was going to be recognized as something worth paying for and being considered a professional. I hit both of those a lot earlier than I expected to. If you do anything in media long enough, at some point, PR firms will find you. Whether you're a writer, whether you do things on YouTube, whether you have a really big social media presence, you'll start getting emails pitching you to cover things or promote things. I've gotten emails for everything from somebody's new children's book to a mixtape. Do you want to try this person's new tequila? The answer is always yes. And a lot of times, you get stuff that you just kind of ignore. They become white noise. But I got one that really piqued my interest. It was an invite to go to Tulsa to cover the Centennial of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Most folks, I think, learned about it from that scene in Watchmen, the first episode. Some of us knew about it beforehand. I admittedly knew enough about it to forget it until the Watchmen episode came out. While the plan going in was to write something for some publication I was going to pitch to when I got back, but what ended up happening was I ended up leaning heavily on my camera. There were a lot of things happening at that point that everybody was writing about. There was supposed to be, all these big events, a concert with John Legend, the president was supposed to arrive, Stacey Abrams was supposed to be there, and, a lot of things big and small. Some things got diverted and changed because of some political reasons that I won't get into. You can Google and see why folks didn't show up. But that wasn't going to be my interest anyway. I knew everybody was going to be going to those places. And what I wanted to do was meet the people. I ended up spending a lot of time at the Greenwood Art Gallery, which is located in the Greenwood section of Tulsa, which is where the massacre actually took place. The gallery is run by a woman named Queen Alexander, and her and several other folks, Marel, Mia, Payne the Poet, to name a few, were really my Sherpas in terms of, meeting the people and just hanging out and getting a sense of what was going on there. And what I was able to do in that process was take photos in the spaces where I could be seen and not seen, and at the same time I wasn't making folks uncomfortable. Folks were their natural selves. So for me, it was awesome. It was an amazing experience. I think I ended up taking something like 4,000 photos over the course of the 5 days. So what ends up happening is while I'm out there, another writer who was, I can't remember what publication she was working on at the time, said that Ebony was looking for somebody to do a photo spread on the events. And thankfully, they put me in contact, and Ebony said they wanted me to shoot and send them some photos. Now, for somebody who's only been shooting maybe a year at that point, to end up in a space where not only am I invited on my first press tour for an event like this, but to find out that I'm going to be having photos published in a magazine like Ebony, It was a big goddamn deal. I was really, really excited. Funny story ends up being, I submit my photos and the response from the editor is, and I quote, "These are cool, but they're kind of basic." I was, of course, a little offended. Nobody wants to hear that their work is basic. But looking back, I realized what the issue actually was. I was shooting spaces and people that weren't points of interest to the national eye. I wasn't going to the big events. I wasn't, in the room with the big politicians taking their photos. I was taking photos of the people who actually lived in and around the Greenwood area of Tulsa. And that's great if you're not trying to put out something that weekend to cover what happened for all the big events. Much to my credit, though, even then I wasn't worried about it. There's a time where there probably would have been sheer panic at getting a response like that, but I was happy with the work I was producing. And ultimately, Ebony was too, because they ran the photos. In the end, I wasn't really worried about it because I was confident in my work, and I was going to be in Ebony, which is great, even if the photos weren't quite exactly what they were looking for. There are certain titles and distinctions that I don't give myself or refer to myself as. One of them is journalist. I don't consider myself a journalist. I have friends that are journalists who do work that is astounding in terms of investigation and knowing the ethics of journalism and studying journalism. These are all things I have not done. I've used it at certain points as a shorthand, but I've never considered myself a journalist. In the same vein, up until that point, I hadn't called myself a photographer. I've watched people in their work in photography and the years that they put in and everything else that goes into being a legitimately professional photographer. And I was very hesitant to claim that until Tulsa. It was a turning point for me. And I decided at that point that I was going to live in that truth of like, I'm a photographer now. This is something that I do. And I think, it was a very life-altering moment for me. I just turned 44. I was 43 when I was in Tulsa. And you reach a certain age where you don't think about these life-altering moments really being a thing. You don't think about new careers and new outlets and everything else. But Tulsa allowed me to put the stamp on the idea of me being a photographer. And I'm forever thankful for it. Hope this was interesting to you. Hope you enjoyed the photos. Let me know your feedback. Let me know what you guys think about the photos themselves. Similar experiences. And again, if any of you out there have decided to do a series similar to this or any kind of recap of your year, please let me know. I'd love to see them. I'd love to see the things that you've accomplished this year. But yeah, man, appreciate y'all. Peace.